evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. One man is dead and another arrested following a stabbing in Etobicoke. It happened inside a residence, and police saying tonight the victim and suspect are members of the same family. Vanessa Balantic has the latest in the investigation.
Police descended on this quiet neighborhood near Kipling Avenue and Eglinton Avenue West around 2 this afternoon. Officers were called for reports of a stabbing in this corner home. A man was found with injuries, but later died on scene. Detective Sergeant Philip Campbell told reporters the victim and suspect are related.
Right now, I just want to say that it's family. It's an elderly male that's deceased, and it's a younger male that was arrested.
Campbell says the call for help came from inside the home, adding that investigators are still putting the pieces together.
Like I said, it's very early. We want to figure out what happened here today. Obviously, there was something that happened to this person that caused his death. There was a weapon involved. I can't say right now if we have that weapon, and I really don't want to comment on what type of weapon it was.
Residents in the neighborhood say a family lived in the house. They say they've been there for decades and were always friendly. They were shocked to hear this happened in their neighborhood.
The area here has been very safe. There has not been anything, to my best of knowledge, any break-ins or any stabbings or anything like that. The community here is very strong, and they look out for each other.
I give my condolences to the family, and I know this is the kind of thing that shakes the neighborhood forever. This isn't going to be forgotten tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be feeling safe, walking my dog, and it really changes your perspective on things,
Police say there isn't any threat to the community and are appealing to nearby residents to come forward with tips.
I'm here today to ask any neighbors or anybody that might be watching, if they have any information, to please give us a call.
Vanessa Balantek, CBC News, Toronto.
The jury has begun deliberations in the trial of Umar Zamir. Zamir has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder in the death of Toronto police officer Jeffrey Northrup, who was fatally struck in an underground parking lot nearly 3 years ago. Greg Ross has more on all the options the jurors must now consider.
After a trial that lasted nearly a month, the fate of Umar Zamir is now in the hands of the jury. Today, the judge completed reading the charges to jurors, who are now left with 4 options.
They can find Mr. Zamir guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of second-degree murder, guilty of manslaughter, or not guilty of any criminal offense.
Criminal defense attorney Lydia Riva says a conviction on first-degree or second-degree murder is not likely based on the evidence.
The Crown has to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's a high burden of proof. It's closer to an absolute certainty than it is to a balance of probabilities.
Zamir is accused of running down Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrup with his car on July 2, 2021. Northrup approached Zamir in the underground parking garage at Nathan Phillips Square. Zamir said he didn't know he was a police officer. He said he thought Northrup and his partner Lisa Forbes, who were both in plain clothes at the time, were trying to rob him.
To prove first-degree murder, the Crown must prove that Mr. Zamir either meant to kill Officer Northrup or that he meant to cause bodily harm that he knew would likely cause death and that he was reckless that that would happen. In order to prove first-degree murder, the Crown also has to prove that Mr. Zamir knew that Officer Northrup was a police officer. Now, if the jury finds that Mr. Zamir had the state of mind for murder beyond a reasonable doubt, but they have a doubt about whether or not he knew he was a police officer, then they can convict of second-degree murder.
If the jury finds that Zamir didn't have the intent for murder, in order to find him guilty of manslaughter, they must find that he committed a crime.
This is unlawful act manslaughter, and so in order to convict Mr. Zamir of manslaughter, they have to find beyond a reasonable doubt that he's committed an unlawful act. And in this case, the unlawful act is dangerous driving. So they would have to find, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he was guilty of the crime of dangerous driving, and then they'd have to consider the mental element for manslaughter.
If the jury finds that he was driving dangerously, they can also find that he was acting in self-defense.
The judge instructed this jury on self-defense in both the context of second-degree murder and in the context of manslaughter. And the judge explained to the jury that it's the Crown's burden to disprove self-defense. In other words, Mr. Zamir doesn't have to prove he acted in self-defense. The Crown has to disprove beyond a reasonable doubt that he acted in self-defense.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A ban on wearing a keffiyeh inside the Ontario legislature remains in place, despite all four party leaders, including Premier Ford, stating today that they want the ban overturned. For many Palestinians, the checkered scarf is a representation of their cultural identity. But those who support the ban say it's been corrupted by radicals. Lorena Redekop has more.
From the belly of the beast.
The keffiyeh is a common sight at pro-Palestinian rallies like this one. It's that political connection that led to the speaker's ban on it inside the legislature. But the scarf also has a long cultural history. Today, the NDP leader proposed this motion.
That this House acknowledge that the keffiyeh is a culturally significant clothing item to many in Ontario's Palestinian, Muslim and Arab communities.
She'd already written to the Speaker last week about this. Last night, the Premier put out a statement also opposing the ban. So did the Liberal leader. The Premier today repeated that the ban should go.
Why divide the community even more than it's already divided?
So this morning, the Speaker told MPPs he could reverse it.
As Speaker, I am the servant of this House.
But the motion for Marit Stiles required unanimous consent.
Agreed? No. Agreed. I heard some no's.
PC Robin Martin was one of those no's.
We can't wear T-shirts that say "Free the hostages," or wrap ourselves in a flag or whatever. We have to follow the rules of the legislature. Otherwise, we politicize the entire debate.
She was asked if she's defying the Premier with her vote.
It has nothing to do with the Premier. It's a decision of the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly.
All the opposition parties want the ban lifted.
The Premier had indicated his support. I think the Premier needs to now make sure that his caucus does the right thing.
I've seen keffiyehs all my life. It's a cultural expression. It shouldn't be something that we have to debate.
But given the vote, the Speaker isn't backing down.
There's a political aspect to all of this. We were in a political environment. It's not unusual that people would seek to make a political point.
He says this first came to him as a complaint when the keffiyeh was worn by an MPP. Independent member Sarah Jama says she was told to remove hers back in February.
Over and over again, we're seeing policy and decision making that continues to say, we can't talk about Palestine. People are not allowed to show their culture in that place. And we're going to continue to shut down any conversation around Palestine at the Legislative Assembly of Ontario.
She also doesn't shy away from the politics of this issue. The Ford government voted to ban her from speaking inside the House after a social media post shortly after the conflict started between Israel and Hamas, mentioning the effect on Palestinians, not Israelis, and refusing to apologize.
I ground my words in the realities of the Israeli apartheid and Israel's ongoing domination and occupation.
The Jewish group B'nai B'rith Canada posted online in support of the ban.
We believe it is unfortunate that a symbol of the cultural heritage of the region has been corrupted by radical elements within our society.
The ban is in place everywhere inside the legislature building, not just in the chamber. There already are strict rules at Queen's Park. Hockey jerseys aren't allowed, for example, without a motion of unanimous consent. It's the same with symbols like ribbons in support of a cause. One Palestinian community member says the keffiyeh is important.
It is something that ties me to my ancestors in Palestine and Lebanon. It is something that I've been wearing more often to express my identity. As a way to resist the attempts to silence me, my community, to try to erase me from the narrative.
As for what happens now, someone could bring up a similar motion and then another vote would happen. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. We told you last night it was coming, but many drivers are still expressing shock over the jump in the price of gas. The price at the pump surging about 14 cents, now averaging just under $1.80 a litre. Tyler Cheese now on why drivers may have to get used to the higher price.
Crazy. I can't believe it. It's expensive. I'm driving my wife's car because I can't afford to fill up my pickup truck.
A 14-cent surge in gas prices at a time when the cost of pretty much everything is already up is concerning for many. And for some, it's also a matter of livelihood.
I just put like $6 extra for what has gone up.
So it does affect, and I have to come back maybe later to add, and tomorrow I have to do the same thing. So my earnings, our earnings, and this business, it's hard.
Even the Premier is weighing in.
It's unacceptable. Everywhere I was going, it was about $1.59. You wake up this morning, and it's $1.80. You know, it's absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting what the oil companies are doing.
It's no surprise that people are upset by the price at the pump, but what's behind this sudden increase? Well, experts say there's a few factors at play.
Twice a year, we change the quality, the kind of gasoline we use. And there's good reason for that, especially as you go further north, both the United States and Canada. By law, by regulation, you need to ensure that the gasoline you're using in the summer doesn't evaporate, create environmental damage, low ozone, responses.
He says refineries add butane to winter fuel, which helps start your car in colder temperatures. But in warmer temperatures, butane makes gasoline more volatile. For summer fuel, refineries add in more alkylates. The problem is,
alkylates are extremely expensive.
He says the April 1st increase to the carbon tax and the price of oil are also impacting gas prices. Fortunately, the price of oil is down, which is likely to lead to a 5-cent decrease in gas for tomorrow. But he's concerned overall high prices could be an ongoing trend in coming months.
We could see average prices in Canada, coast to coast, move up 12 cents from where they are now to the $1.90 range. I think it'll stay there for a little while.
As for finding the best prices, he recommends fueling up in the evenings and on weekends. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
And a heads up, if your travels take you along the DVP or King Street West, the city has announced some lane closures.
Recognize that this is happening at a time when there are a number of other construction projects on the go in the downtown, really impacting traffic, and particularly the Gardner Lane closures. And I just want to assure everyone that we have a very detailed congestion traffic management plan that is in effect to basically help keep all residents moving.
Starting tonight at 10 until 5:30 tomorrow morning, all southbound lanes of the DVP between Don Mills and the Bayview Bloor ramp will be closed so workers can remove a damaged sign. Meanwhile, on King Street West, starting Monday and lasting until April 28th, westbound lanes between Dufferin and Joe Schuster Way will be closed for crews to make water main repairs and replace streetcar tracks. Now, one eastbound lane will be open during that time. A full list of closures is available on the city's website. Toronto's controversial vacant home tax is here to stay despite a botched rollout this year. The councillor is voting to keep the tax at a meeting today, but they're also committing to an overhaul after receiving over 120,000 complaints. Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffords has more.
The scene this week at City Hall as staff quietly worked to reverse the damage from the error-filled rollout of Toronto's vacant home tax. It's a far cry from the frustrated people in line a week before. 2 floors above them, councillors grilled city staff about what went wrong.
Was there a reason why we went from what appears to be a successful format for alerting people to this program and the tax they could owe, and this thing, which I assume most people just threw in the garbage?
City staff were candid about the program's failings. 167,000 bills were sent out, a huge jump from the 11,000 last year.
The challenge is it should not have been sent out to 167,000 people. The program design is such where we are required by the VHT bylaw to have issued the bill by the end of March. That is an absolute flaw in the program design.
Veteran councillor Francis Nunziata had this blunt assessment of the situation.
You know, we screwed up. I mean, that's the bottom line.
In the end, council adopted a plan to completely overhaul the tax itself. And that will also include reversing charges to all but 11,000 people assessed the tax last year. A vote to scrap the tax failed. But a number of councillors also pressed the mayor on her role in the situation. And they disputed claims that she made to CBC Toronto last Friday that a civil servant was fired over the troubled rollout.
The program was designed in a way that was deeply flawed. That person is no longer working for the city.
So there have been people internally at the city who've lost their jobs over this then?
Yes.
Today, councillors attempted to set the record straight.
My last question is, were any staff fired as a result of the rollout? Through the speaker, no.
The mayor says she didn't mischaracterize the staff member's departure.
No, not at all. I'd rather not discuss the details of a human resource matter.
Councillor Brad Bradford was critical of the mayor's handling of the tax rollout.
I would just say, when you're the mayor, you run this ship.
Mayor Chow says if the tax isn't fixed next year, she'll be to blame.
If it has no common sense approach, if it's communicated poorly, the design of the program is deeply flawed, then absolutely I will take full responsibility.
City staff will now begin to review and redesign the program. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
A new walking tour is honoring the legacy of the city's first Black politician. William Peyton Hubbard was a city alderman at the turn of the 20th century. Now, his story, just one of the ones being celebrated as part of #HearThis, a walking tour series aimed at educating people about the East End's Black history. The initiative got a boost this week with a $1,000 grant from the Toronto Foundation and Volunteer Toronto. Lane Harrison has more.
And here we are.
Hubard Park sits just east of the Don River on Gerrard Street, named after a man who was instrumental yet somewhat forgotten in the city's history. This summer, William Peyton Hubbard's story will be celebrated through a new walking tour. Elected to City Council in 1894, he was Toronto's first elected official who wasn't white.
This wasn't taught in my history classes. None of my history teachers had ever brought it up. And I was just, it's fascinating how history gets erased. It gets
and forgotten.
Hubbard served in city politics for 2 decades. At times, he was the city's acting mayor. The walking tour will go from his house on Broadview to the park named after him. It's being organized by Lanrick Bennett and led by Marie Wilson, funded by a grant from the Toronto Foundation.
Huge feeling of gratitude to put some funding behind really being able to amplify and give these stories some legs, some life.
Hubbard's memory has been preserved in large part by Wilson, who campaigned to have the East End Park named after him, a fitting honor considering his political achievements.
All his life he was a champion of the underdog, and he just felt that the poor people, the disenfranchised, needed what we now call green space.
When the city was gifted a large swath of land, Hubbard fought his fellow councillors for it to become something Torontonians still use today.
The owner wanted it to become a public park, and they said, we just can't do that. Hubbard said, yeah, we can do that. Let me tell you how we can do that. He got everybody on board, and finally, yes, and that's why we have High Park today.
Hubbard also fought to protect Chinese laundry owners, as wealthy white shopkeepers lobbied council to impose high licensing fees that would keep them out of business.
And for me, as a parent, I want my kids to understand that there are people that look like them that were around, that were here,
that came before, that were fighting the good fight back then.
That's right.
This and other Black History walking tours organized by Bennett will take place this August to coincide with Emancipation Day. The tour routes will also be uploaded online for anyone to follow themselves. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
And it is that time of year again. Toronto's cherry blossom trees are once again in bloom. This is what it looked like today at Trinity Bellwoods Park. Despite dreary and overcast skies, dozens of people were on hand taking in the colorful sight. And you are looking at a live shot of Toronto, partly cloudy tonight, currently sitting at 11 degrees. Colette Kennedy joins us now with a look at your forecast. And Colette, some more April showers on the way?
Yes, it is that time of year. I mean, we're into April. We expect to have those spring showers, but I know the pattern has probably seemed like it's been pretty wet lately. So why don't we just start off, get it out of the way, and look at the next 5 days and what we can expect in terms of the rainfall. So we know we have something coming in overnight tonight. So tomorrow, yes, some morning rain, but this system's going to move quickly. So I've got us into some afternoon clearing. Saturday, there is a chance in the GTA of some scattered showers. It's heightened a little bit further north towards Georgian Bay, but they should be pretty widely scattered there. Otherwise, we'll have some sun coming back, and certainly we'll be able to enjoy some sunshine there, and maybe a beverage as we go into Sunday. Monday, take in the cherry blossoms or whatever you might like. If there's any blooms still left on after the rain and some of the wind, we'll have partial sunshine again, and then there it is. Tuesday, another system moves in, bringing us some light rain. The daytime highs from today, actually, we were pretty close to seasonal all around, a little bit above in southwestern Ontario, maybe a touch below in parts of eastern Ontario. But if we look at the temperatures moving forward, that's something else I want to focus on. Not so much the daytime highs, but the overnight lows, because I don't want you, let's put these numbers in place, don't want you to be caught off guard. We're still going to have a few nights and early mornings then where the temperature's getting back close to freezing, and it'll be cool Saturday morning, Sunday morning even cooler than that. If you're thinking about planting, you need to kind of keep some of this in mind. I've got the freezing line here at 0, and look at as we go towards next week. We may still have some negatives there for some of those morning lows, so do keep that in mind. This is that system that's going to move through. It's doing us a favor though, because at least this one's moving quickly, so the rain showers will move out early tomorrow morning in southwestern Ontario, and then you'll get into clearing, and it's going to take some time into eastern Ontario, but we will get clearing into the Golden Horseshoe as well. So kind of the second half of the day improving, although the breeze kicks in a little bit, and breezy as well into Saturday. You saw some of that, not only scattered shower activity, but maybe a few flurries that pop up. In terms of this system that's coming in tonight into tomorrow morning, a little more enhanced towards southwestern Ontario, maybe closer to 10 millimeters, probably closer 5 to 8 though, as we go towards the Golden Horseshoe. 6 for our low tonight in Toronto, and then we get that clearing in the afternoon. That arrow is clouds moving out. That'll get us to 15, and Saturday in the afternoon, the clouds move in and a cooler day with a high of just 8.
Great. Thanks so much, Colette. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.